Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's Tomas sharing all my thoughts on fashion, lifestyle, and anything else that comes to mind. I just heard my voice and I feel like I sound a little bit like nasally or weird. It's Toronto Pride this weekend. Today is like my rest day from basically drinking for like the last 5 days. So I feel like my voice sounds a little weird. Honestly, you guys, I have been outside the entire weekend. I literally never want to drink again until next weekend. But we are recovering today. So I thought today is the perfect day to film. If you guys watched last week's video, you guys know what this video is going to be. This is going to be the complete roundup of Paris Men's Fashion Week for spring 2025. I think I have like, honestly, 16 show notes here. So we need to just get into it because there's going to be a huge long video. It's probably gonna be like 40 minutes. So you guys know what to do. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to the channel and follow me on Instagram for all the tea. And let's get right into it because there's absolutely no time to waste. The first show that we have is the MENS. I believe this is the show, if you guys remember, where they told everybody to like not take pictures and everyone was like, it caused this whole discourse on the internet about like if we should be allowed to like take pictures at like a fashion show, all of that like little thing moment. So I don't really know why the row kind of does like this whole like presentation and then they'll release the pictures like way after, because I feel like they showed this back in like February. I think they showed this in February during the fashion week for women's. Or maybe it's because all this clothing is in stores now. So it's just easier to kind of get everybody ready in the shops. For this collection, I felt like they were a little bit more freer. It seems very more relaxed and casual compared to previous The Row collections. If you guys remember really early The Row collections, they were very proper, very subdued, very kind of like snotty. And I feel like lately the collections have been kind of more casual and more freer, which I'm totally into. It does seem like the Owens are having way more fun. For example, this styling on this specific look really stood out to me. This kind of like sweater with like a skirt tied to the jeans. With the jeans and the sandals, to me that looked very kind of like throw on and go, very casual fashion to me, which I feel like we don't expect from the row a lot. I noticed here that they are repeating pieces. So in look 37, I'm not even lying to you guys, I literally have this sweater. I'm gonna put a picture on it here, but this is an exact copy of this old The Row sweater that I have from like 12 years ago. But I kind of love that they kind of keep like an archive and they try and like reissue pieces, because you know with The Row it seems to be quite all about just like really wearable pieces that you can kind of repeat over and over. So when I saw this, I was like, I really like that idea that they're kind of keeping like an archive and it's just pieces that you can wear over and over. Love the use of the thong sandals with like all these looks. You know, you're getting like a very tailored pant for the men's with kind of like a sport jacket and you're throwing on the thong sandals. To me, that's really cool styling. I feel like I've talked about the thong sandals in previous videos before, but I'm kind of warming up to the idea. I just think it looks very like off the cusp and very sporty and casual, which I'm totally into and I really like it. Really love the kind of Euro casual styling. So you know, there were some looks that were like a kind of sport jacket worn with sweatpants and then the sandals. To me, that's like very kind of like introspective about how men kind of dress today. You know, we're never all just wearing kind of tailoring pieces, or never ever just wearing all sport looks. We always like to mix and match. So I do think that this collection was a very modern reflection on how like men kind of like to dress. This was a very strong collection, and what I always say about The Row is that like I feel like the styling or the way that the looks look is honestly very easily replicated. If you don't have The Row money, as we all know, The Row can be quite expensive. If you don't have The Row money, you can easily find these pieces at like COS or Zara or any other kind of like lower price brand if you want, and you can easily recreate the looks, which is what I always like. Would I want a whole wardrobe from The Row? Probably not, but it does give me kind of that like styling inspiration to kind of maybe see different ways to style pieces that you already have. Kind of like a mood board, not necessarily kind of like a shopping catalog, if you guys know what I mean. All right, Auralee. So Auralee has been kind of lately been one of my favorite brands. I was actually introduced to it by Daniel Simmons. He talks about it a lot, and I think he unboxed like a jacket a few weeks ago from Auralee. So I started like looking into the brand and I really like it. So the brand is from Japan, but they are showing in Paris right now. And I believe this is only one of their few first presentations or runway shows that they've been having in Paris. When you first look at it, you probably don't get the kind of Japanese vibes of the looks. When you look into it, you're like, okay, no, I totally see the kind of like Japanese aesthetics and inspirations in the collection, which is what I really like. I also kind of love the mix of the Parisian kind of like lifestyle that he's like doing, I feel like he picked to show in Paris for a very specific reason, and you can kind of see it, kind of those aesthetics seep into the collection, which I really love. I love in this collection him using kind of the very basic cotton. You know, I feel like in luxury, like if we're going to an Hermes show, you'll see like pants and a shirt, but you know that that shirt is probably merino wool and those pants are silk. In this collection, you could really see that a lot of it was just basic hard cotton, which I really like. It kind of brought back to like the basics of clothing, where like you go and you just buy a cotton shirt and you buy cotton pants with sandals and like that's it, you know what I mean? I really love that aspect. I think when you're doing clothing that is very like day to day, I think the way to kind of get everybody introduced to it is with styling, and I feel like in this collection they used really cool styling. You know, the kind of use of layering with like the denim jackets over top, and then the use of ties for accessories. I thought the styling in this collection was really strong. It was really one of my favorite collections, you guys. I am totally taking inspiration from all these looks, which is what I always kind of like about Fashion Week. If you're a client, for example, at a couture show, you are taking pictures because you're shopping for your next events. But for like men's Fashion Week, for me, I'm always like looking to take like inspiration from like all these shows. I love the kind of youth mobility kind of inspiration. So, you know, a lot of the models had headphones in, had like sporty zip ups. It's kind of like a mirror of showing like real life. To me, auralee kind of gives like Japanese Hermes. I feel like a lot of the pieces are actually very reminiscent of how Hermes does their men's clothing. But if you guys look online, auralee tends to be a little bit more pretty affordable. You know, you guys know what I mean when I say affordable. Like compared to other designer brands, you will find on Essence a lot of the pieces full price are always lower than $1,000. So I think he's really trying to create this brand that you can kind of like take separate from, kind of like the row, but obviously not that expensive, and just pair it with your everyday life, pair it with the closet that you already have. This is honestly one of my favorite brands lately, you guys, so I think you guys should really check out the show. It was a really great show. We are moving on to a heavy hitter, Louis Vuitton by Pharrell. So, I mean, I think there's like a lot to discuss here, and when I was like looking at this collection, all I could say, the first thing that I was thinking of is that I don't think Pharrell is using the atelier and the great resources that he has to do great clothing at Louis Vuitton. I think his first collection has been in stores lately. Personally, I don't live in a city where maybe people would buy the clothing. I don't live in Europe, I don't live in New York, but I don't necessarily see a lot of people buying the Pharrell stuff already. I mean, I know his first collection probably has been in stores maybe for like 2 or 3 months, so maybe it takes a little bit to warm up. I don't really see a lot of people buying it or wearing it, especially on social media from the people that I follow. This collection was even harder to kind of like connect with. If I'm gonna be really harsh, there was like a lot of nothing going on. I think Pharrell is very focused on fulfilling every single category. So you saw a lot of the jackets have like little mini denier prints, or the pants have the like Louis Vuitton little print on it. So I think he's like taking the job a little bit too literal to include like Louis Vuitton damier print, put it on a leather jacket, $6,000, let's sell it. You know what I mean? Versus when Kim Jones was at Louis Vuitton, he would take inspirations from like wherever he traveled and made the collection into that. And this is super different, and I'm just having trouble like connecting with it, and I don't necessarily think it's very good. A lot of the clothing was very plain. For example, I'm looking at this look that is like a monogrammed, very casual monogrammed zip up sport jacket with trousers and boots. I'm like what am I looking at? Like, this is so like not like, this could have been a lookbook, if I'm being honest. Like, this should have been a lookbook. Pharrell is a very creative person, so when he does it right, like with the Tyler Creator capsule collection, I absolutely love that. The use of like the dogs and like the little prints on the bags. I think that's like a really cool way to kind of mix the house and like little creative little novelties here and there. But in this collection, there was no like outlying theme to connect with the collection. I feel like the last collection, it was very cowboy and Western inspired, but here you're like, there was nothing. So I honestly didn't think that was a really great collection. I feel like the accessories are probably a really strong standout from the collection. So I really did like the bags, if I'm gonna be honest. Obviously this kind of like lime green mini speedy and then like the pink mini speedy, obviously the accessories are great. When you're doing 81 looks and none of them stood out to me, it's just, we need to go back to drawing board and kind of like, it's weird because I feel like he started off really well at the start, and now he's just kind of like not doing that well, but compared to Virgil Abloh, who would take these inspirations from his life and from like culture and do them in such a way that was like great clothing that was also really wearable, to this, I just didn't think that it was that good. I don't know. You guys gotta let me know what you thought of Pharrell with Louis Vuitton. It just, nothing stood out to me, and I didn't think that it was a great collection at all. I've given my first boot, and we are only on the third collection. That's crazy. Let's move on to Bianca Saunders. I don't have a lot to say about Bianca Saunders. I feel like her brand is one of those brands that is very low-key, but always does pretty great, consistent work. What I really liked about this collection is that there was a lot of like 1800s inspired pieces, but then she kind of like modernized them. So like the specific look with these kind of like satin shorts with the tall boots. By the way, I'm so here for the tall boots. If you guys watch my styling shorts, you guys know. One thing about me, I'm gonna wear shorts with a tall boot. I really resonated with the styling. You know, I noticed that she did these kind of like very skin tight shirts to the body. She did this look very, very repeatedly, and obviously, you know, these are models who have amazing lean bodies, and I don't think the styling would work on like literally anybody else that's like not a model. But I did think it was a really, really cool idea. This kind of like very skin tight white shirt with the sleeves cut off to here. You know, it's not a short sleeve, but it's also not a long sleeve. And I thought this was like a really, really cool kind of like idea. I'm not sure if it would work when it goes to retail, but I really did appreciate it. I love the little hats. I love the boots tied into the jeans. She adds this kind of Seville row tailoring to the pieces, but it ends up looking very street. You know, as I talked about that before, the satin shorts with the kind of like shirt and like the very well tailored coat. It's a very unique perspective that she's doing. Do I think that it works when it comes to people actually wearing the brand and when people actually buying the brand? Not really, because I don't see a lot of people wearing the brand. But I do think that she's doing something that's like very niche and very specific in menswear, which I totally love. And I always appreciate her collections. I think she does it really well. I love the kind of just like in and out. She'll do like 19 looks, and that's what you're getting. And I think it's like no, you're getting the whole pie when you go to her collections. You don't get any kind of BS, and I really like it. I just want to see maybe some more growth in her brand, and I think she could definitely get there. She could definitely get there. And I thought this was like a really great collection. Lemaire, they're having a huge year or a few years. You know, their accessories are great. The handbags are great. The shoes are great. I know personally I want a lot of the footwear. So I think who's ever doing accessories at Lemaire not only encapsulates the essence of the brand, but also does it really well and also creates very sellable clothing. I love it. I think it's a great, great brand right now. Do I think that doing a fashion show for this brand is necessary? Absolutely not. I think a lookbook is fine enough. To do a fashion show with, you know, 70 plus looks, it does get a little bit gratuitous, and I don't think it's doing much for the brand in my opinion. Again, we have a very strong collection from Lemaire. I noticed that they were playing a lot with sensuality and sexuality. So this one look from the woman's part, kind of like very skin tight shorts and Henley with the, what is that called when you, the garter? With the garter on the thighs. I thought it was really cool because I feel like when people think of Lemaire, they think of a very minimalist, kind of bookworm girl who goes to the library and studies. But then this kind of idea of the sensuality playing against the minimalism, I thought was really interesting. I really, really loved it. So I would kind of be interesting to see if Lemaire can kind of like maybe sex up the brand. You know, a lot of the dresses go to the floor and a lot of their dresses are long sleeve, but what if we get like a Lemaire? Okay, I feel like I'm asking for like Lemaire Skims, which I'm not, but you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like, why wouldn't a woman who appreciates minimalism and has a closet full of Lemaire, like how does that woman feel sensual when they want to go on a date or when they want to go out to party for the night? How does that woman feel? So when I saw these little ideas of that collection, I was like, oh my God, like I totally love this idea of the Lemaire woman kind of like coming out of her shell, not going to the library, but going for drinks. You know what I mean? I like the women's wear way more. I mean, the men's is okay. Obviously, I would like take all of the clothing. Like, are you kidding me? The men's clothing is fantastic and I absolutely love it. For the most part, I do think Lemaire was a pretty great collection. Do I think we need a runway show to show all of this? Absolutely not. We could have done a presentation, and yeah. Acne Studios. I have never seen a brand ruin its own vibe as quick or as big as Acne Studios. This is so not what Acne Studios was 12 years ago. I don't get how we let TikTok ruin Acne Studios, because this men's collection, not only was it horrific. It was just so blatantly inspired by other brands, when Acne Studios used to be the inspiration. It used to be the mood board girly. Everybody on Tumblr used to love Acne. They used to do these really cool, like, cool shapes that ended up still being really, really wearable with the knits and the pants. And then when I see you blatantly copying off a Givenchy shark boot for a man, I was shook, you guys. This look is so insane to me. This like sport scuba like long sleeve with the bike shorts and the Givenchy shark boots. It is insane to me. There was nothing Acne Studios about this in any which way. And also I think because like a lot of like straight men shop at Acne Studios, it used to be that brand that was like a little bit like feminine enough that like straight men would get points for wearing it, but still masculine enough that like that the man wouldn't get made fun of for wearing it. And there's absolutely no way that any Acne Studios clientele would wear this unless you're like a club kid or you're very into that kind of like, basically this was clothing to wear to Berghain in Berlin. And that clientele is not big enough for you to make your entire menswear category into this aesthetic. Ugh, this is so terrible. I hate the bags, I hate the shoes. This model, like I just cannot believe that Acne Studios actually copied a Givenchy shark boot, like so blatantly. And I've heard stories that the denim is getting into really bad quality because they're producing so much, basically because TikTok kind of made the resurgence of Acne Studios. So I mean, you get what you get. If you guys want to do this and then you guys see that in 2 years when everybody's over this aesthetic, you guys are left with like all this stupid product that you produce because you wanted a quick buck, then you guys can deal with that then. Let's get into issey miyake, homme plissé. You guys know, if you guys watch my channel, it is literally my favorite brand. Honestly, it is one of my dreams to go to the fashion show. So I always like love to see the collections. I thought this collection was like a little bit more sport focused, you know, with the anoraks and the kind of like sport aesthetic of the vibes. I always feel like with homme plissé, because it's so limited to one fabric, a lot of ideas have to get repeated because it's quite hard to come up with like something new. I thoroughly enjoy this collection. I really love this kind of like mix of the tailoring. So like I noticed this one look where like the rest of the look is cotton, but they used these shorts, the pleat shorts, as kind of like the boxer short look. You know how like right now the trend is to kind of wear like your boxer shorts showing. I thought that was like a really creative way of kind of like keeping on trend with what today's looks are, but still keeping intact to like the issey miyake brand. You know, I love the color palette for spring. The yellows, the blues, the like lilacs. One of my favorite colors that they do is this like flower lilac pant, and I think it looks so good. I actually really want to get one of the pieces from this color because I love it. I hate when they do the prints. Last year they did this really terrible print. It was like red with like flowers on it, and I feel like this isn't like a print brand. You guys need to quit it with the prints because set against the pleats, it's just so overbearing. It's like doesn't really work. They've been trying to make it happen like a few times, and I think that they need to like not, if I'm being really honest. But I love the mix that they use. You know, they do the pleats and then they'll put like an anorak that's from like cotton or probably from like wool, I imagine. Issey miyake is one of those brands that you kind of have to go and expect that you've already seen everything, but then there will be a little bit spots and pieces here of like new stuff. So I think it's like a continuation of a conversation that's kind of like never ending. With homme plissé, you can't really like judge it in a very critical way because it's based off one idea, which is the pleat, and we're just kind of showing you different ways that you can wear the pleats, and a lot of the collections do look really similar. You know, we see the yellows that we always see, we see the blues, the lilacs, but I thought overall it was a pretty good collection, and I do think this collection was like a little bit more sport focused. It's not necessarily my vibe, but I do appreciate it because it's one of my favorite brands, you know? All right, Rick Owens. Personally, I don't think there's much to say about this Rick Owens collection. You know, the whole Rick Owens brand has been built off community, and you know, like for example, he doesn't dress, if a celebrity wants to go to a show, he like doesn't dress them. He like you have to like buy the clothing to wear to like a Rick Owens shows. So when you do that, you obviously are bringing in your community to every single show. Do I think like every collection is particularly that creative or that brand new? Honestly, no. I feel like a lot of people gag for it, but like I'm just like, it's kind of that homme plissé brand. It's a lot of it feels very, very similar at any given time, and this specific collection didn't help that because a lot of it looked very, very, very similar to what he does already and has always been doing. So the whole thing is that he basically fitted, I think the whole thing was like 20 looks, but he fitted it on 200 different models. So he had to fit each specific look on like 20 different people, and then he sent them down at that time. To me, that just shows that your brand is so versatile that you can kind of fit your pieces into 20 different body types, which I thought was really cool. Was I gagging? Like, no. I mean, it was all white collection. I don't really like the color white. Like, it just felt very like filler. I felt like this was a kind of like a filler collection and wasn't really like doing much, didn't really push any envelope. No, I love Rick Owens. I love to wear some of the pieces. I think it gives me that kind of edge and very cool masculinity when I wear it. Yeah, this collection, it was like, I'm like, okay, 20 different people wearing the same look, like, you know what I mean? I wasn't like, we weren't gagging, so. Let's get into Amiri. So, you know, I always kind of feel bad for Mike Amiri because he's done this kind of Casablanca, Miami Vice aesthetic. I feel like he's been doing it for like a long time, but it's really just not catching on because the retail of it is like hoodies and trucker hats, and the denim, obviously, you know, you guys know the denim was like pretty much what put him on the map. It's like a shame because I honestly do really like the kind of aesthetic of the brand that he's doing. You know, I'm saying again, Miami Vice. A man that like smokes like a cigar on like a boat. I think like that's kind of the vibe. And I feel like a lot of menswear brands aren't really doing that right now because they are scared of it looking kind of gauche and like douchebag. But I feel like Mike Amiri does it in like a pretty great way. I just don't understand why it's not catching on. In terms of what's at retail, I mean, we don't have like Amiri stores here, but I wonder if what they focus on pushing is like the hoodies and the trucker hats, and you can't really ask that client to venture into silk shirts or this really, really great tailoring that he does, honestly. Can you expect the old Amiri client to kind of buy into this if they don't really have that lifestyle? And it's funny because like all the runway shows are just like this really, really great tailored, really great color palettes. A lot of it reminds me of Kim Jones at Dior. And I feel like maybe the quality is there. Like, I really liked last spring's collection. I thought the color palette was absolutely beautiful. And it's just a shame that, like, I guess, I mean, does McDonald's make all their money off the fries and not anything else on the menu? Like, that's kind of how I look at the Amiri brand. I really like this color palette of the browns with the blues and the greens. This kind of finale looks with the, you know, like wedding, kind of like tailoring the like crystal jackets. I thought it was like a pretty great collection, you guys. And I'm just interested to see, like, in the future, how is Amiri going to last as a brand? Because we're focusing too much on the logo hoodies. And do we need to force that client to just buy into this? You know what I mean? So, I mean, obviously, like, what do I know? Like, I don't know how to run a business. But, yeah, it's just a shame because I think the clothing is pretty good. And I think the, like, aesthetic, it's pretty unique. Like, if I was going to, like, a Cannes Film Festival, I'd probably wear, like, a whole Amiri suit because it's kind of like French Riviera aesthetic, and I thought this collection was pretty good. All right, Head Mayner. So Head Mayner has been one of my indie darlings. I feel like I've talked about him on this channel before, but it is genuinely one of my favorite brands showing in Paris for menswear. This is only his 5th or 6th season, but he did a lot of this kind of very, very huge oversized look. Kind of like the Vuitton aesthetic, but in like a more actually wearable and cool way. So he would do these like really huge kind of apron shirts and like blazers, and it was really cool. It was very, very oversized. I thought this collection was really, really strong. It reminded me a lot of Sacai with the kind of layering of the jackets and that kind of like sport influenced vibe, because he started this whole thing with the oversized thing. I think he's trying to move away from that, but he still kind of keeps it very intact with his aesthetic. So there's this look that I'm like completely obsessed with. It's this like these zippered up shorts with this kind of like anorak jacket and like the boots. I think just looks so modern, so cool, so like what totally like a fashion guy would wear, and I really, really like it. I think he does really great with denim. I'm always in the search of denim. I feel like you can never have enough denim, and I really love this kind of like non-tapered, just loose hanging off the legs denim vibe, and I really, really liked it. The one thing that I have noticed with Head Mayner is that the brand tends to be very, very expensive. And I think when you come out of the park being this expensive right away, it doesn't help you. For example, Peter Doe. Peter Doe had this great aesthetic, and it was like everybody like really liked it at the start, but then it would be like $5,000 blazers, and it's hard to invest in an indie brand because you don't get the result back. So what I mean by that is when you are buying a Prada jacket that has a triangle logo and the jacket cost $4,200 or whatever. When you go out in life, and I know that you guys are gonna call this like narcissistic or whatever, but it's true because this is how luxury clients shop. When you go out of the house and you have a Prada triangle logo on your chest, you have social points for that. You are paying $4,200 to be able to be carrying that Prada triangle logo coat. So when I go into Essence and I look at head mayner and I see $2,800 blazers, it's hard to invest into the brand because there's nothing that I'm really getting. And I know we shouldn't really be shopping like that, but like, unfortunately, that is how most luxury clients shop. And I think when you're only in your 5th or 6th season, I think if we start the prices a little bit lower, you are not Hermes, my dear. You are on your 5th season. And if you want to have like a real business, I think the prices need to come down lower. Personally, I would love to have a lot of the head mayner pieces, but like I struggle when the pieces are 70% off and a shirt, a basic cotton shirt would still be $950. You know what I mean? To me, it's just, in my opinion, that's what's really holding the brand back, because there are a lot of different brands that are in the same market, like Ernest W. Baker or Bianca Saunders, where you go on Essence or you go where they're stocked and the prices are pretty achievable, but with head mayner, the prices aren't. I don't know where it's produced. I don't know what for the most part, the fabric composition is. It might be a little bit more expensive, but this is what I get from the brand, that it needs to be like a little bit more approachable. All right, Dior men, you guys know that like for the most part, I am kind of like a Kim Jones hater, but you guys, this collection was pretty good. I feel like with this collection especially, you can always see the blatant inspirations that Kim Jones got. This like very slim tailoring vibe to me was very kind of like Hermes kind of like, you know what I mean? But I feel like Kim Jones always has an aspect of like fun and kind of like whimsicality that he brings to the men's clothing, which I always kind of like appreciate. He does like a really great knit. There were some pieces here that like I really liked. You know, last week when I was like talking about how like terrible Fendi men's was, and I was like, well, why doesn't Kim Jones do it? But it would just look exactly like his Dior. But I could see a lot of these pieces transcending into like the Fendi man world. I think Kim Jones knows how to create a covetable piece. You know, he's always doing these collaborations. Like, I think this time it was Stone Island with Dior, which is so like, he's really on the nose about what the client wants, because a Stone Island hoodie guy wearer will 100% go buy a Dior bag. You know, he's really on the pulse with culture, which I really like, because for me, I love pop culture and I love mixing that with fashion. I get why he's picked a Dior, because I think Dior is a very worldwide brand that needs to appeal to a lot of customers, and I think he's doing that really well. There was this one sweater that I really liked. It's near at the start. He did it in yellow and then I think he did it in blue, but it's this short sleeve knit with little bird appliques at the top. I don't know, to me that was like really cool. It's very how like I like to wear clothing, and I love the like kind of like the way he'll like modernize tailoring. So like he'll focus a lot on like tailored shorts versus trousers, and I think like the modern man right now buying luxury clothing is very relaxed. You know, I feel like I see a lot of like Dior clients that they'll wear, you know, the like classic monogram shirt, whatever. You think it's corny, but like for a straight man to buy a silk shirt, it's actually pretty like, it's pretty progressive in terms of like what they're buying when they go out. That's not like a Gucci polo, you know what I mean? I feel like Kim Jones is kind of like modernizing the male client in luxury fashion, and he's actually getting them to wear these really cool modernized pieces. It's very more, it's like looser tailoring. It's very like streetwear focused. You know, he's like a huge streetwear fan, and it kind of translates that into the clothing. I thought it was a really strong collection, you guys. You know, I'm a hater, but I give my 10s where 10s are due. Actually, I give my 7.5s where 7.5s are due. And I thought this collection was great. The accessories, obviously super covetable. I think the male Dior client is like, kind of has nowhere else to kind of get this stuff. And I feel like he's kind of reeling them in, and he's doing like a really great job of keeping them buying at the brand, you know?
You just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.